Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, 18-foot skiff fans, and welcome to Sydney Harbour on what is quite a wild and blustery day. My name's Steve Quigley, and we're here for race 2 of the New South Wales Championships. I'm joined today by two distinguished gentlemen and sailors. The first one, those of you that have been watching the 18-foot skiff footage for many years will recognise, and that's Mark Healy. He's going to be our anchor for the day and host for the day. And another very distinguished sailor, Chris Links, who I'm sure Mark will expand on his distinguished career. So over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Steve. Hello everyone at home, wherever you are. If you're in Sydney, you don't need me to tell you it's very hot, 35 degrees, and it's windy. The wind noise you're probably picking up our microphone. It, in fact, is so windy that the race is it's been called off, I think, now officially, isn't it, Steve? That's right.
Yeah, the flags just went up on the clubhouse, and unfortunately they weren't the coloured flags that we were hoping to see.
But
so
all
it's been abandoned.
All is not lost, because we think there's at least 2, 3 and possibly 4 brave yachts who are going to launch, which will be hard in this westerly breeze from Double Bay. Anyone who's done that will know what I'm talking about. And they're going to come out and sail. Let's see if that happens. We'll keep you right up to date with that. So look, sorry for the delay in transmission today, a few tech issues. And I don't think we're going to give you the official Alice Burton Memorial Trophy, but we might just find some pretty memorable shots if our Intrepid 4 make it. We're just heading out into the wilds of Double Bay in 25 plus knots. Very strange feeling. It's like being in a washer dryer. Anyway, Chris Links. Chris, thanks for joining us today. Chris is frequently to be found on that fabulous ship, Wild Oats, and Chris won't be long till you're heading south again this year.
Yeah, no, as a lot of people might have seen, that we're on the harbour yesterday, that 3 of the Maxis were out there, and we'll be out there from next Wednesday for a week of sailing on Wild Oats 11, so looking forward to that, but more so looking forward to today.
Yeah, today's, is this the amount of breeze you'd actually like to have to get you down to Hobart, or is this a step too far?
We're surely likely to see something like this. We had certainly similar strength in last year's race. Probably be a little advantageous to Comanche at the moment, but certainly would shake it up, so we'd be happy with this.
Yeah, look, we've just launched the drone to see if the drone can actually make decent headway in 25 knots of breeze. So what's happening on the water, just to bring up to date with the weather situation? Over the last hour or two, we've had averages at one point of 37 knots at Fort Denison. That's in the middle of Sydney Harbour. That's obviously unsailable in anything, let alone a skiff. But it's been down as low as 18 on the average. So race officers caught between a rock and another very hard windy place, because does he send them out, does he not? Well, he undernerved for a while. Onshore, Linksy, you did talk to some of the crews. My sense was there were more people keener to stay ashore and not break anything than get too ballsy.
I think definitely. I think everyone's looking ahead to the pointier end of the season, and definitely worried about gear damage and the big races coming up.
Yeah, so they're probably going to save themselves. Steve, you were sailing a skiff as recently as last season, weren't you? Just tell us what's going through the head of a skiff sailor this time of the season in this kind of breeze.
Oh, look, I think it ranges from apprehension to downright fear. I mean, and there's a lot to be fearful about. It is pretty fresh out here today, but not, as is always the case, poor old Dougie Cameron is the one that's got to make the decision, and there's a lot of things that go through his mind. From, we've got the ferry, we've got a clubhouse full of people that want to go out and watch, we've got our live stream viewers, but he's got to balance safety as well. So it was his call, and we respect that call, and as is always the case, though, 5 minutes after it he's called it off, it looks reasonably sailable. But look, sailing in a westerly is never easy at any time, but sailing an 18-foot skiff in a westerly is particularly difficult.
And why is that?
Just the big changes in direction and apparent wind angle and speed. It's diabolical. I mean, it's a lot of fun if you survive, but there'll be plenty of swimming happening today, that's for sure.
Steve is usually sailing a skiff, or Wild Oats as well, another Wild Oats crewman. It's a Wild Oats fest here, isn't it? But last year you were saying a skiff launching in a Westerly. Everybody talks about it's hard, it's difficult, it's dangerous. Just explain to the viewers why is it hard in a Westerly particularly, and obviously on a day like today where it's fresh.
Well, because you get the double bays in a bit of a vacuum in a Westerly, so you get the breeze coming over the top, you get the breeze coming from the park. So getting off the beach is particularly dangerous because 1 minute you're on a square run and then it knocks you in the face, and until you can get your nose out into the harbour proper, you're not really in any particular breeze direction. So it's diabolical getting through all the boats and the moorings and the ferries, and more people crash between the beach and the point than they do out on the course.
Yeah. Good chance for drama, isn't it? There for sure. Well, if they do launch, we'll be sure we'll get cameras for viewers at home to make sure you get to see whatever the carnage is that gets created. And Lexi, you've said a lot of stuff in your time. Ever been on a skiff?
No, it's never been my area of expertise, that's for sure. My younger brother Aaron sailed skiffs with Cocko and Ewan McNichol and won a couple of guillotines with those guys. So I've followed it intensely, but never sailed them myself.
Yeah, I remember your brother. He had a great run, didn't he, for a while? They were a really good crew. I remember the year that Ewan won. Quite emotional, that team, wasn't it? I think had he just missed out 2 times in a row, or there was some backstory which I forget, about 7 or 8 years ago. Ewan McNichol, who is actually in the boat part today, sailing on Bingley, is that right, I think, today?
No, I think he's sailing with John Winning Jr. today.
Okay, yeah, you're probably right. So he's around. Some of these old faces in the skiff fleet do hang around a long time. It's something we were talking about a few years ago. It's the same story. We do have some youth crews this year. They're doing a good performance. Rag and Famish, the obvious standout youth crew for sure, and some other contenders are for that title. But quite a few of the older names are still here. Now, there's an event coming up on Tuesday, on the 14th of December. It's on a Friday. I think it's called the Legends Regatta, is it, or the old dudes, or who knows what it is. Steve Quigley is one of those old dudes, so he can tell us in a second what it is. But essentially, there's going to be skiff racing on Friday the 14th, so quite soon before the Hobart. Some of the older, really big names of the skiff class, people like Rob Brown, I know, will be there. He was in the boat part today, that's the reason I'm plucking that name out of the air. And it's never been done before. Friday evening sailing with some of the big names. I think Chris Nicholson too is turning up as well. Another ex-terrific skiff sailor, 49 sailor, Volvo sailor, etc., etc. I'm looking forward to that. So you're going to come and watch?
Oh, I think I'd love to come and watch that. There's some amazing sailors that's come through this class. And just back to Ewan, actually, he was actually sailing with Cocko today, so they've teamed back up. But yeah, no, that sounds amazing. And so is that a twilight format? Sounds like a pretty good afternoon. We're
going to hand to our resident old expert, Steve Quigley. See what's the format and who's turning up on that Friday. Can you remember?
Old, that's me, but I don't know if it's necessary qualifying criteria. Look, it's an invitation event, Mark, and I think it initially was based around just trying to get some of the upper level sailors, not necessarily skiff sailors, to come down and have a go at 18-foot skiffs, and then it kind of morphed into an ex-JJ winners event as well. We expanded it a bit in that direction, and I guess by virtue of time, most of us have got more grey hair now than not. So I don't think it was necessarily intended to be an old guys regatta, but it's morphed in that way. I am racing.
Terrific. Do you know who your competitors are?
I know who some of the competitors are. There's Chris Nicholson, Olivia Price, Rob Brown.
I think I saw Adam Beashall, Joe Turner.
Will Adrian Adrian Cahalan?
Adrian Cahalan.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Trevor Barnabas would have to be there because he's fit as a fiddle anyway, isn't he?
As you said, Rob Brown. So it'll be it's going to be a very well-contested race.
And I noticed from the list that Chits has just handed me, it sounds like I've suddenly learnt something. It's not a highly capable producer-director sat behind me is just giving me a nudge and showing me the list of entries. And one of them is, of course, not last year's winner, but Lee Napton. So how does Lee qualify? I mean, he's a He's a young, current generation, extremely expert skiff sailor who's handed the reins to Coco this year. So how did he sneak in that list?
Well, I think he would have come under the original bracket of superstar, wouldn't he? He's a JJ winner.
He certainly is that.
No, we're very happy to have him.
Awesome. So it's a really interesting lineup. Some people there clearly haven't sailed skiffs for a very long time. What will be interesting is whether that matters or not. Linksy, you haven't sailed one at all. What do you reckon? Do you think if you were Rob Brown's era, top skiff sailor of his era, him and Ian Murray, who's not on that list, we'll talk about that in a second, why that's the case. Do you think you can just jump back in, or has too much changed in the last, let's call it, 20 years?
I think from the older generation of boats with their massive wide wings, you'd have to think that these boats are probably a little more manageable. But you've got to get your old body around them too. So for some of the older guys, it might be a little bit harder in that respect. But a lot of like Bouchot and Joe Turner and some of those guys are as fit as anyone out there now. So I don't think they'll have any problem jumping in.
And the format, I think, Steve, correct me if I got this wrong, is that each boat sails with its regular crew. It's just the skippers that change. So hopefully the skippers are stepping into a boat that can get round the corners.
That's the idea. The skippers step on. The boats are going to be drawn. Lots are going to be drawn before the race, so you won't necessarily know who you're sailing with. But we're very confident. All of our skiff crews are very competent, and the skippers will be very happy with their boat and their crew. And the format really is it's 2, hopefully 3 windward lewards, 5 o'clock start. There'll be a ferry, and of course back to the club for lots of frivolity afterwards.
What the skiff sailors do best. Yeah. So look, just bringing you up to date, we said we'd try and find something for you to watch. You're looking at the Double Bay boat park right now, and you'll see a distinct absence of rigs up in the air, which is, or even boats on their sides with mainsails on. So it looks like even our Brave 4 have pulled the pin, probably the wisest decision, but I can see John Winning in the distance just there, kind of probably trying to cajole people to have one more look at it. John Winning was the one keenest to sail, I think, wasn't he, today? Steve, you were talking to him, I saw on the boat park. What's his attitude to this kind of big breeze postponement thing?
Oh, look, Woody won't be particularly happy, Mark. He, we designed these rigs with a compulsory 1500mm reef, and we provide everyone with a storm jib, particularly for these sorts of scenarios. And I don't think I'd be overstretching to say that he won't be particularly happy with this result. He's always keen to go sailing, and I'd also note that his son Herman was rigged up and ready to go, and Simon Nern on the Armarine, and the kitchen maker Jordan Gertis and his team were the 4 that really bought in. The rest of them, there wasn't a lot of buy-in for the other 14. I didn't think. Linksy, did you?
No, but I did notice. I had a bit of a chat with John before we came out. He was super fired up. Had a big gust come through the boat park just before we headed out, and it blew his main over the top of his mast and snapped a batten, and he just quipped, "Oh, that won't matter. Let's get it sorted and get out there." So he was fired up, and so was John Jr. So it would have been great even just to see a match race between those two. Yeah,
that would have been fun, but it looked like it's not going to happen today, so we're sorry about that. We're not going to drag out this program too long, but just before we come to what is a very premature end for us today, just a few other updates on other bits and pieces. We talked about this new format racing on Friday afternoon. That's a one-off event, by the way, not a regular thing. Normal racing is Sunday afternoons, 2:40 start local time here in Sydney. It's always recorded, as you'll know. If you haven't managed to pick up the live or it's a bad time, you can always pick up a recorded version at a friendly time, whichever part of the world you are in. And if you go to the club website, you will see on each and every day a holding page comes up up to 5 minutes before the start of the race. That's the structure. You'll notice the aerial pictures. That's Aeromedia, John O'Witty and his team putting the drone up in the air so we can actually see what's going on. And we're going to try very hard to make sure that every single start has a drone up in the air so we can get those terrific shots and as many marked roundings as battery power and logistics and good luck allow. As well as that, some of you will have also noticed we've got racing now, sometimes 2 races a day. That's a complete revolution for this class, and that actually extends to the JJ Giltnan coming up in the first week of March. Set your clocks, put it in your calendar. It's not that far away now. And for 2 of the days of the JJ, there will be 2 races on 2 days, which is a complete change. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be full on. Particularly as I think, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, are there any discards in the JJ?
There's still 1 discard,
So one
unless
discard.
we get to 10 races, but at this stage,
So
the goal is to go to 9 with 1 discard. So
with multiple race days.
Yeah.
So boat maintenance and keeping the thing in one piece is going to be very important if you want to be JJ winner.
we like to reward reliability. So that's the goal. And the 2 race format days were very well received last year, Mike. So we did it as a bit of a test, but it was very well received by both the competitors, the spectators, and the sponsors. The sponsors loved it. So we're going to do it again this year.
Yeah, look, I've heard nothing but good about that. It's it's great to have the intensity. Pretty hard on the cruise, though, isn't it? 2 races, 2 starts, and even without any capsizing, it's a physical thing. Linksy, is that the reason you've avoided this fleet, or what's the real reason why you've been absent for so long?
I came through Olympic classes, and so we were just pretty busy with all that sort of stuff, sailing solings, and I was sort of more a traditional sort of bigger boat sailor. I came through dinghies, but then into the yachts. But I've always loved this class, always admired it, and I look at it now, and some of the sailors coming through it, their skill levels, and the way sailing's changed in a very short period over the last sort of 3-4 years. These guys are right at the heart of the next generation of top yachties. So
They go from here always on to the big steps, like the big Hobart boats, talking of which, because I'm not sure if we're going to have a chance to have you as an expert on board before the Hobart race. We probably won't, because you've got training. We need your form guide. I think so you're on the inside of this. Obviously you're going to back the old bus Wild Oats for sure, but just briefly, just give us a sense of where you think the threats are, and is it all about Comanche, or has someone else got a shot at this?
Definitely not all about Comanche. They've done a lot of sailing. They're very impressive. They've improved their light air performance and probably their VMG capability, but they've still got a big Achilles heel of if it gets a bit bumpy and light air, they will struggle, as you saw in last year's race. But I tell you, the boat really to watch out for will be Blackjack, I think. They've done a lot of sailing. They've improved their boat. They've got closer to everyone. Everyone's been trying to close the gap in their weaker areas, so we've all probably sort of got closer. You could sort of more just throw a small net over what the boats, are capable of now. But they're very good in the light, so if they're there or thereabouts in Storm Bay or up the Derwent, and it goes light, they'll be very hard to beat.
So if it goes very light, Blackjack are going to be a real problem for you. If it's fresh and downhill, Comanche, big problem for you. So exactly what conditions are you after?
We'd be happy fresh in a big seaway upwind, or fresh downwind, and anything VMG running, we'd be pretty happy with. We think we can go with Comanche there. We're probably a little better than Blackjack running and reaching, but you've got to, as you saw last year, you have to be there. And we managed to hang on to them and come back into them late in the race when it was fresh. So you've just got to give yourself that opportunity. Anything can happen. Yeah,
it's amazing how it happened. A lot of people watched it on the tracker, the great tracker that CYC runs. It was fascinating to watch. Just that, as you came into them from behind, did you really think you were going to catch them? Because on the tracker it looked very unlikely for a long time. It came good, but what was the mood on board the boat? What does it feel like from the inside?
We thought we were going to win the race. We were super confident that it was. All our comms were that it was going to be stop-start up the Derwent, and exactly as it played out is what we talked about happening, and it was sort of like the script was written there in that case. Yeah,
it's amazing, wasn't it? And just it would be wrong to not ask the last question about this, which is how much conversation on board on the way down was there about that incident in Sydney Harbour that ultimately led to your disqualification?
Very little chat about it after the incident. We discussed the incident at the time. we felt that they had altered their course a couple of times, and so we dismissed it. We felt we'd completed our tack. It didn't look good on the video for us, but we hadn't looked at that, which was probably to our detriment. And not that it mattered after, we made the decision on what we saw at the time.
Yeah, and
as it turned out, it was the wrong one, but it was our decision.
So this wasn't something that was an ongoing dialogue as you headed south. What happens if we go to protest? Will they protest? What will we say? The things that happen in regular yacht races, a lot of our viewers will have been in that situation. Was that happening, or did you just put it out of your minds and get on with the yacht race?
No, we just put it out of our minds and got on with it. There's too much else going on to worry about that sort of thing. We just had to get there. We could have finished second and it may never have been an issue, so we just had to get there and give ourselves every opportunity.
Chris, thank you so much for that insight. Anyone who's stuck with us for the half hour or so of this transmission, thanks for staying with us. You've had some lovely views of the sailing club. I think you saw quite how windy it was out there when Steve drove us out into the teeth of the little storm we've got here. But no racing today, so we're going to have to call to the end of this particular transmission. The Alice Burton Memorial Trophy on December the 2nd didn't happen, so I don't think Alice will be giving out her trophy this year at all. To everyone on board, Steve, Quigley, thanks for driving and keeping us in one piece on this windy day. Linksy, thanks so much. I hope we'll have you on board again. Great to talk to you. And at the back of the bus, people flying planes, looking after batteries, doing direction, the usual crew, Chits, Jono, and his various helpers. Thanks so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you viewers in a week's time for the next race, next Sunday, 2:40. Make sure you join us then. Goodbye.
Nice work, man.